the variety of options available to students in larger urban centers. Small rural schools are the least likely to offer advanced placement courses, only 34% do. Enabling choice through education savings accounts could mean the difference between hundreds of high school students taking AP calculus or physics courses versus having to be content with what's available in their small brick and mortar schools, which is unnecessary in an era when the ubiquity of the internet has improved access and services to products in almost every other sector that affects American life. Moreover, enabling funding to allow children to follow children to a variety of education services and providers, as the ESA would do, would enable a thriving market to operate. Policymakers in states with rural districts can rest assured that supply would meet demand if dollars were student-centered and portable. Finally, you're not building the plane as you're flying it. It's already been done in Arizona and Florida, as was noted. You have a roadmap. Arizona has already answered questions about whether karate classes in Rosetta Stone are approved expenditures. Arizona has already figured out that it becomes easier to scale the ESA once you have more individuals participating and can use product codes to manage what products the ESA card can pay for. States literally now have policy manuals detailing the finer points of how to manage what we're calling the next generation of school choice 2.0, completely feasible and manageable. ESAs will create a partnership between parents, the public schools and private schools and service providers, and will free up resources that can help these children get the very specialized approach to education that they require and deserve. Thank you.
Any questions for this witness? Thank you very much for your time in this presentation. How many plan to testify in favor of Senate Bill 531? And any in opposition? Okay. This time, we'd like to have witnesses in favor of Senate Bill 531 come forward.
Kate Casas with the Children's Education Council of Missouri. I don't think I could add anything Lindsay didn't say, so I just want to go on record in support of the bill.
Thank you very much for testimony. Any questions for this witness? Thank you very much. Next in favor.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee. My name is Jeremy Kitty with Missouri Alliance for Freedom. We just want to go on record in support of this legislation as well.
Any questions for this witness? Thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify in favor? Anyone wishing to testify against Senate Bill 531?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Mike Odling, the school administrators who go on record are opposed to this. I think you heard a lot of conversation about rural Missouri for whatever reason. Being a proud product of rural Missouri, my choices and my availability of options was not limited whatsoever. I had some phenomenal experiences, phenomenal class offerings. I think there are a lot of things that we can do more as a state, but as far as creating a voucher sort of program, we currently cannot fund our local schools in the state, really doesn't seem like the logical option. So go on record opposed to this, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for this witness? Thank you very much. Next witness in opposition.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Howard Page on behalf of Missouri NEA. We would like to go on record in opposition. I just want to make one point, and that is that the federal IDEA does not treat students enrolled in a public or private school at all in a similar fashion. Our concern for the students in any bill where we've seen that tends to encourage students to disenroll from public school if they have an IEP is that under federal law, if they are enrolled in public school, they are entitled to 100% district funding of free and appropriate public education pursuant to their IEP. They give that up if they enroll in private school. They are entitled to proportionate share of services, but it may or may not align with their specific needs and requirements of their IEP. For that reason, we have concerns about any bill that moves to encourage folks to disenroll from the public school system and move to private school if they have an IEP. Happy to answer your questions.
Any questions for this witness? See, thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else wishing to testify against Senate Bill 531? Anyone for informational purposes only? Seeing none, Senator, any closing remarks?
None, I think we'll just let it go for testimony, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. That will close the hearing on Senate Bill 531. Moving on, Senator Chappelle-Nadal, Senate Bill 418.
Mr. Chairman, if I could have a small point of order, the senators, go ahead if you would. Today is our chairman's birthday. So, have you all join me in happy birthday to Mr. Chairman? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to the chairman. Happy birthday to you.
Mr. Secretary, please call the
Senator Pearce, Romine, Brown, Emery, Lidler, Ponder, Chappelle-Nadal, Holtzman.
Thank you. I'll have to take that back. That was very nice. Senator, proceed.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, I have to tell you, I have my own version of happy birthday, but I
Will
have
you
to.
say that later?
Yes, I will. For the record, my name is Maria Chappelle-Nadal, and I represent the 14th Senatorial District in St. Louis County. Before you, for your consideration, you have Senate Bill 418. It is a sexual education bill. It makes sexual education resources more objective and fact-based rather than prescribing one approach or viewpoint to all students. What I have been noticing for a very long time is that our young people are sexually active. We wish that they would wait to involve themselves in these adult activities. I think that's the hope of many people, but because that is not reality, it is very important that our young people have resources that are available to them so that they can be more educated on some of the problems that exist when you are engaged in sexual activity at such a young age. The bill allows for sex ed materials that are medically accurate. We also want to have a discussion about abstinence, and it removes the requirement that courses emphasize emotional and psychological consequences of sexual activity. Instead, focuses on useful information about HPV treatment, healthy communication with family, and guidance over the changes of adolescence and how to make responsible personal decisions. It includes important information on safety, dangers of sexual predators, that's very important these days, best practices with texting or sexting, and other forms of electronic communication and behaving responsibly on the internet. There are a bunch of people who are here today, but I am definitely open for any questions.
Do we have any questions for the sponsor of the bill? How many plan to testify in favor of Senate Bill 418? And for those of you that are here as part of the group, if you want to say me too as a group and provide your name on the witness form, you'll be on record as well as supporting the bill. We'd be happy to accept that as well. Senator, do you have witnesses you want to call?
I do believe that we have a few witnesses here today, and I don't have the list with me.
Okay. First witness in favor of Senate Bill 418. State your name and the floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Lauren Everett. I'm a junior at McClellan High School, and like she said, we are sexually active, but we aren't receiving the information. I know my freshman year in high school, we have a health class, but the only form of sexual information we had at all was over STIs, which was great. We definitely need that information, but I never understood how that, knowing that information would help us if we didn't know how to prevent them from happening and where to go if we did end up getting one. And when I asked questions regarding that information, I was told to Google it. That was very, very helpful and led me to a bunch of information that was very, very different, even though it was over one topic. And I see it every day. People are talking about it all the time, but everyone thinks that they're right when all the information is different. We need an actual education over this because even for the people who are not sexually active right now, they will need this information in the future. It's just necessary.
Very good. I appreciate your testimony. Very good up here today. Thank you. Any questions? Very good. Any questions for this one? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next witness and say.
Make sure that microphone is close to them. Just make sure it's close.
Good afternoon. My name is Meg Boyko, and I'm the Executive Director of the Teen Pregnancy and Prevention Partnership. We're a nonprofit organization, and it's our mission to promote adolescent sexual health and prevent teen pregnancy across Missouri. One of the primary ways that we do that is advocating for medically accurate sexual health education and working for its implementation. We know that teens are having sex. It's not just a rumor. The Youth Risk Behavior Survey shows that nearly half of Missouri teens will have sex before they leave high school. TEACHERLP, the Teen Pregnancy and Prevention Partnership, wants to see abstinence taught in our schools. We think it's an important tool. But we also know that abstinence-only education specifically is not as effective as we would hope. There was a national review of abstinence-only curriculums that showed that 11 out of 13 were actually providing inaccurate and medically false information to students. We don't think that's acceptable. We know that in the end, those abstinence-only curriculums were not preventing teens from initiating sex. However, we do have a solution, and the solution is in part Senate Bill 418, because medically accurate, comprehensive sexual health education has also been studied nationally, and it's been shown to delay sexual initiation, lower STI rates among teens, and it helps teens build healthy relationships, not just sexual relationships, healthy relationships overall. So that is what we think would be best for the students of Missouri. And it's not my personal opinion. We've also looked at Missouri-specific polls of parents, and a vast majority, over 80%, also support medically accurate sexual health education. So that is why we are here in support of Senate Bill 418. In addition, I have written testimony from 2 of my peers at Faith Aloud, and I know you have many other forms of testimony. But I appreciate your time and welcome your questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions to the crowd?
Hi. Thanks for your testimony. Can you just outline, either you or the bill sponsor, the differences between what this bill would call for and what sex ed is being offered in our schools right now?
I believe that the primary difference between the current law and this law is that it no longer includes the abstinence-only curriculums as an option. We want communities to be able to choose the health curriculum that's best for them, and this law does not change that, as the existing law does not. However, existing law does allow for the medically inaccurate abstinence-only curriculums to be taught.
And I would just tell you, what is in existence right now is not helping communities that look like mine. Over the summer, through the tragedies that we experienced, there was a lot of socializing. And it was very concerning to me to see so many young people sexually active and having multiple partners. And so what we have in our schools obviously is not working at all. It has gotten so bad to the point where I literally give away condoms because there are multiple teenagers having sex with multiple partners. That is a problem. If you talk to Representative Hinson, who works in my district as well as the 13th district, he says the number one reason why people go to the ER is because they have STDs and they're young girls and boys who are going to the emergency room and they don't understand what is coming out of their bodies, which is not natural. So obviously we have a problem with the level of education we are providing our young people, but I have to say, in communities that have more poverty, it's worse. And the amount of diseases that we're paying for, the state is paying for, is ridiculous.
So Senator, right now is the choice of sex ed curriculum left up to each individual district?
We have a policy in place in the state, and then every single school district can go up to a certain level. As a school board member, I've wanted to open up the conversation. It was the request of our student. It was the request of our student body that we be more inclusive of what we provide in terms of sexual education, but we are restricted because of our rules here at the state.
I'm sure because of your,
Because of our rules, of our laws here at the state, we are limited.
So you felt that the existing state law limited what the school board could authorize in the way sex ed curriculum?
Absolutely.
And is that like abortion referrals or is it other stuff?
We don't even talk about
I didn't think
abortion.
you-
All we're talking about is safety. I mean, and there are some people who philosophically are against condoms. I think they're good.
Yeah.
You know, there are other people who are against, you know, other things. And I want these young people to be safe.
Of course, yeah. No, I'm just curious if there's something in present state law that keeps a given school district from, you know, telling about various methods of contraception and telling about various sexually transmitted infections and so forth.
Yeah, I can't cite it, but I can give it to you.
Yeah, I can't
But
see
we
that our
are,
present state law says you can't teach about chlamydia or gonorrhea or syphilis or something.
we are limited, but I don't know. Typically, I would know
In other
statute,
witnesses might get more information too, so.
but I'll make sure that you get that information.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next witness in favor, Senator 14.
Hi, my name is Ellen Demscher. I am 100% in favor of this bill. And as a former student and current educator, I feel like I can speak from both perspectives about the importance of comprehensive sex education in our schools. When I was in high school, I took a health class and was subjected to abstinence-only education, as so many students across our state are. But as I was sitting in my desk that day, I didn't feel like I was being educated. I didn't feel like I was being given information. I felt like someone was trying to impose their belief system on me. I was told repeatedly, don't have sex, don't have sex, don't have sex until you're married. And that was it. Now that I'm an educator, I take my job very seriously. And what I do on a day-to-day basis is teach my students the way to solve problems on a day-to-day basis, as well as in their futures. I consider it my responsibility as an educator to give them accurate information and to help them live their lives responsibly and safely. I would feel like I was failing my students if I was intentionally withholding information that they need to be safe. I would feel like I was failing them if I did that. And I feel like I was failed as a student in Missouri schools. This bill is awesome. It's an awesome thing for students to be getting what they need from schools. And one of the primary functions of schools, I think we can all agree, is to give students the information they need to live their lives safely, responsibly. And that is why sex ed, comprehensive sex ed, belongs in schools, because that is the function of our schools, and that is the function of this bill.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for this witness?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for coming. When you're a classroom teacher now. Right?
I'm an assistant teacher, yes.
Okay, so how effectively are you able to explain to your students the impact that their current physical relationships will have potentially on their future marriages?
Well, what I give my students is medically accurate, age-appropriate information
Do you think
about their bodies.
Do you think any of them want to be married? What's your sense as a teacher about the likelihood of marriage for some of these students?
I think some may marry, some may not. I'm not sure where you're going with this.
Well, just, I mean, wouldn't that be a part of accurate information about this types of relationships? Would be discussing how what the impacts would be on future relationships?
Yes, and one of the most important parts of this bill is that abstinence would absolutely be talked about in detail. Abstinence would absolutely be something that would be encouraged. But what this bill changes is that schools that choose to seek to teach sex ed to their students would be teaching their students the benefits of all of the different methods of avoiding teen pregnancy and STIs. There is abstinence, there are condoms, there are many different methods, and that is one of the things this bill would provide students.
Is there any discussion now, or is it prohibited by current law in terms of talking about how their present sexual activities may affect future relationships? Is that prohibited, or are you able to talk about that?
It is not prohibited. What else is not prohibited is the distribution of false information in schools.
Thank you.
Here's what I want to add. You know, many of us grew up, you know, going by the rules of our parents. If you could figure out a law to ensure that we have relationships, great. But we have a problem with people who do, like me. You know, I'd love to be in a wonderful relationship, but the fact of the matter is it doesn't matter if you have been decent with your activities or not. I mean, just because you follow the rules or just because you uphold your moral obligations has nothing to do with your future relationships, because you may be in a community where it's impossible to have that. So I think it's important in saying that, yeah, everyone would love to be in a relationship, but it's not just based on the sexual activity that you had in high school. So I mean.
No, but if we're talking, Senator, about fully educating someone, the impact of that activity should be fully discussed.
And here's the other problem.
That's what we're doing with the disease, the STDs, and other things. We're saying these are the impacts that your activity now can have.
And here's the reverse of what you're saying. So you're on one side of this. Let me tell you the other side. The other side is that you have 3 children by the age of 19. Let me talk about my next door neighbor who has 6 children. And oh, by the way, did you know the state is paying for the child care? Where was the education? That's the reverse.
Thanks, Senator. Thank you.
Any other questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. We will entertain testimony in opposition to Senate Bill 418.
Mr. Chairman, committee, for the record, Karen Messer with Missouri Family Network. We would like to go on record opposing Senate Bill 418. No offense to the sponsor, but I don't understand why in the world we would want to remove teaching children about the emotional trauma associated with adolescent sexual activity, the higher risk of dropping out of school, why we would want to remove that from part of the curriculum, or even the emotional psychological consequences of pre-adolescent and adolescent sexual activity. Why in the world we're removing that, I don't know. But we adopted through the state legislature just a couple of years ago a pretty comprehensive policy on HPV vaccine policy to encourage and educate the parents who are the bill payers for the health care for the child and decision maker on younger girls in this regard. There is some good things in the bill. Lines 37 through 43, I think there's some good additions that we could focus on, and also on page 3, there's some good additions because these are in another bill that we did support, a House bill that's come over that hopefully will be advancing to the Senate before the session is over. But towards the bottom of page 3, starting on line 87, there are changes to the current statute That's basically going to open our public schools up as venues for abortion providers to connect with our students in their state of Missouri. We feel that this is a totally inappropriate thing to be doing with our public policy. If families want their children to have a relationship with an abortion provider, they can access those in any community across the state. I don't know why we have to open our public schools up for that venue. Thank you very much.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for the testimony. Next, in opposition, Senate Bill 418.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Susan Klein, representing Missouri Right to Life, here to go on record in opposition to Senate Bill 418. And I won't go into great detail like Mr. Messer just pointed out. We oppose removing the psychological and emotional information, the abstinence information, and also the section that would keep those who provide abortions out of public schools from presenting sex ed. House Bill 501 came over from the House consent, and we took no position on that bill. And it has good sex education information in it, and we would just, encourage you to pass that bill. We don't support taking out what is good pro-life legislation.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you. Next, in opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Samuel Lee with Campaign Life Missouri. I'm just going to go on record in opposition to this bill. I'm not going to repeat what the other two witnesses in opposition have said, except to point out that the current law does require that any course materials of instruction related to human sexuality and sexually transmitted diseases shall be medically and factually accurate. As far as I know, all those who are providing abstinence education in the state are providing medically and factually accurate information. If they weren't, they would not be applying to the current law. I happen to know that Missouri State University, their School of Social Work, is involved in abstinence education. They work with some of the local pregnancy resource centers and other agencies, as well as the Lincoln University Cooperative Extension is involved in abstinence education. They are operating quite well in compliance with this law and have received funding through the Department of Health and Human Services.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your time. I counted on the 3 and 3 initially on the for and against. On time constraints, do we have anybody else wishing to testify?
This is Megan with Planned Parenthood Advocates. We just put it all in their witness forms in the interest of time. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the thoughtfulness. Anyone wishing to testify for informational purposes? Seeing none, Senator, closing remarks.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I just have to tell you, and I know I'm not going to get this phrase right at all, but my dad used to say something to the effect, you're not going to bring a knife to a gunfight. So what we are bringing to our young people right now is not at the level it needs to be. I have done ride-alongs 2 years in a row. And the number one thing police officers will tell you about is the need for having contraception for young people. There are literally young people who are having children and going to the clubs. And that's not the appropriate value in my belief. And I apologize if I bring my values here into this body, but I don't think that children should be having children. And I don't think that children should have all of these multiple diseases. And oh, by the way, we're paying for it. So, in our conservative thinking on how we spend money, how much are you willing to spend? How much? As we're cutting for services, ask yourself, do you think you want more money for the foundation formula if you come from out-of-state Missouri, or would you rather pay for the child care of 6 children who live right next to me with no father? Ask yourself that.
Senator Lytle.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question of this one?
Proceed.
You mentioned disease, and I noticed on 17015, you removed, or the bill removes diseases and put the word in infections.
And what picture are you on?
I'm sorry.
So what picture are you on?
What picture on the page?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
It's where you delete the word diseases,
Infections.
And insert the word infections.
Yes.
What's the thought process on that? Just a moment ago, in your closing, you mentioned disease. And now
Well,
we're.
I think maybe it's inappropriate. Maybe it is inappropriate for me to use the phraseology of disease. I've been using that for 20 years now. So, yeah, infections, I think if you talk to those people, you know, there is accurate language that you use. So pardon me for that. I apologize.
No, my question is, what's the thought process of deleting the word diseases and inserting infections?
I kind of think it's the same thing in many ways. I'm not
Okay.
a doctor. I will ask.
I noticed, one
Because
of the,
we deal with the STI is an infection.
yeah, I noticed that term was used by one of the supporters, STIs. And I'm just curious where or why diseases would be deleted and infections inserted.
Well, that seems like a simple problem to solve, so what I can do is find out why are we changing that and then get back to you in your office.
Well, I was just curious. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Senators, maybe I can help answer that question. I think it's simply the fact that in medicine, we like changing phraseology all the time for some reason. You know, it is true that what we've always referred to as sexually transmitted diseases, and prior to that, we have venereal diseases, they're all infections. Of course, sometimes an infection can lead to another disease like HPV leading to cervical cancer. So in a way, I almost think STDs is more accurate, but this does seem to be the latest rendition. There's a disease that you can get from eating monkey brains called Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. We used to call it Jakob-Creutzfeldt, and I'm not really sure why we decided one discoverer of that disease was more important than the other, but terminology in medicine changes all the time. I think it's fine.
Okay, I have a question for you later.
All right, that will conclude the hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Or you not ever eating monkey brains.
We could have Representative Fitzpatrick come forward and present House Committee Substitute House Bill 187. Again, for those that attended, if you have support or opposition to the bill, you did not verbally testify, fill out a witness form, leave it at the table, and that will be recorded accordingly. Thank you. Representative Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, that's not here, House Bill 187. This bill has three components to it. You guys have seen a similar bill on the Senate side regarding the A+ scholarship program. Currently, a student has to have lawful presence in order to be eligible for the A+ program. The department, because of the Deferred Action Child Arrivals program that's been implemented by the federal government, and put the lawful presence issue in question with certain students. And so the department will begin giving A+ scholarships to students who are currently eligible to receive the scholarship because they're not lawfully present. If we don't pass a bill that does this, or the Senate bill that did. It really, it's a complicated issue. It's the difference between lawful presence and lawful status. This bill would change it where the students have to have lawful immigration status, which basically means they have a visa that's current in order to be eligible for A+. The bill the Senate passed, which I prefer, is required that students be a citizen of the United States and Missouri to access the program. I like the Senate version better because after filing this bill, I learned for researching more of the scholarship programs, every other scholarship program in the state is reserved for citizens. So I think it makes sense to make A+ consistent with the other programs. The other two provisions of the bill are, but I want to talk about A+ for another second. Currently, we're in the first fiscal year where A+ is not going to be fully funded. We funded the governor's recommendation last year, and we're going to do it again this year. And it's not going to be enough to fully fund the Missouri citizens who have historically gotten 2 years of college paid for. And if we add more people to this program, it's going to reduce the benefits that are paid to Missouri citizens and Missouri taxpayers. So that is another reason I think this is a necessary problem to solve.
The other two sections of the bill, one would deal with the tuition rates that are charged to unlawfully present students. Basically, last year, one of the community colleges in our state decided they were going to implement a policy charging tuition based on where a person lives without regard to their lawful status. And that particular college actually had an in-district rate, which is better than the in-state rate. And then they had an out-of-state rate and an international rate. So based on that, if a student lived in the district and went to this college, even though they were here illegally, they would have been able to get a better rate of tuition than other Missouri citizens at that college. And it's obviously up to you guys to decide. I felt that was inappropriate, that an illegal immigrant would get a better rate of tuition at a college than other Missouri citizens. I also think it's inappropriate that an illegal immigrant would get a better rate of tuition than somebody who comes here on a visa and basically an education visa and lawfully comes here to get an education. So basically, most schools have an in-state and out-of-state rate. Most schools don't have forward tuition rates. So this bill would just require the unlawful student to be charged the same rate of tuition as a lawfully present immigrant student. And if that's the in-state rate, then fine. If the college or school charges that everybody the same rate, then these students can be charged at a rate. But it just ties their tuition rate to whatever lawfully present international students are charged. The third section of the bill repeals, and this I'd ask the committee to consider an amendment because it wasn't properly drafted. It only applied to one scholarship program. Most, if not all, scholarship programs in the state they're prohibited prohibit the student from using them to pursue a degree in divinity or theology. It's a prohibition that I personally don't. I've talked to people on both sides of the aisle, and nobody has told me that they think that makes sense. So this would repeal that section. So if a student who met all the requirements of the scholarship wanted to pursue a degree in divinity or theology, there would not be a statutory prohibition on that. I know the department has cited constitutional concerns, but what we are doing here, if we pass this bill, we're only removing the statutory prohibition on the funds being used that way, which would, if the department wants to make a constitutional determination that the funds can't be used that way, then I think the Constitution is ambiguous enough that somebody could sue and probably win if the department made that determination. Obviously, with this language in here in statute, we're saying pretty clearly that these funds can't be used for somebody who wants to pursue a degree in those areas. So if we remove that, at least, give somebody the opportunity to try that if they want to. Those are the three provisions of the bill. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And if there aren't any, then I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Representative. Any questions for the sponsor? You heard the A+ version on the Senate side, and on the House side, the Senate version on the House side this morning. Appreciate your time. Appreciate working with on this configuration.
Thank you.
Do you have any witnesses you want to call?
I do not.
Is there anyone wishing to testify in favor of House Bill 187? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to House Bill 187?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Sarah Rossi, Director of Advocacy and Policy with the ACLU. I will try to address a couple, probably actually all three portions of the representative's bill. The first being changing the language from lawfully present to lawful status. If the goal of this bill is to prevent immigrants who are here without the permission of the federal government and without proper documentation from accessing financial benefits for higher education, that is not what the bill does. What this bill does is it restricts financial aid to certain classes of lawfully present immigrants. So it would be citizens, legal permanent residents, and immigrants who have visas. It cuts out immigrant students who are here with permission of the federal government in order to receive a college education, immigrants who are here as refugees, and immigrants who are here as asylum seekers, along with some other smaller classes of immigrants. So if you want to restrict financial aid to immigrants who are here lawfully, the language should remain lawfully present, and all of those scholarship funds should be available to people who are lawfully present, not those who have lawful status, because you're cutting out a lot of kids who are just trying to go to college and are here with federal government permission. The second part of the bill, the international tuition, I said this in the House hearing last week, and I'll say it again. Immigrants pay taxes, especially immigrants who are here lawfully. They pay income taxes, they pay property taxes, and the one tax that I think all of Missourians pay is sales tax, and they pay sales tax. People who have lived here and worked here their entire lives, especially from their youngest age until they're old enough to go to college, who've been paying into the economy, working in Missouri, living in Missouri, residing in Missouri, should be counted as Missouri residents, especially if they're here lawfully. If they're lawfully present in the state, they should be counted as Missouri residents and should not be charged international tuition rates when they've grown up here and lived here their entire lives. The third thing that the representative brought up, the divinity and theological degrees, he's right that there are constitutional issues with that. It is a textbook violation of the First Amendment Establishment Clause. If the state gives public funds to students seeking divinity and theological degrees, it is a textbook constitutional violation, and I can almost guarantee that somebody's going to be upset about it, and the state's going to be on the hook for that. So if you want to avoid that constitutional issue, I don't think it's a good idea to just take the language out and just see if the kid has a chance to get some state money to go to a religious school. That's not what we're about here. We're about making sure that the kids who need scholarships, and they're adhering to the Constitution, and that religious divinity portion is not adhering to the Constitution. That's my spiel. There are more expert people in the room than me on immigration issues, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to take.
Any questions for this witness? Senator Chappelle-Nadal.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Sarah, I am a little bit uncomfortable with this bill. I have 6 institutions of higher ed in my district, and 3 of them have talked about, because of occurrences that have happened in the last 8 months, they are experiencing a decline in international students at 10% or more. Mm-hmm. And they're greatly concerned. Washington University has expressed this issue. Council has expressed this issue, as well as SLU, which is not in my district. And I know my philosophy has always been, you don't know who is going to be the next Einstein. It may be a Jamaican, it may be an Asian American. You don't know who the next person is who has the cure for AIDS or cancer. It may be one of those international students where you're now charging them 3 times the ordinary tuition. And I am concerned about the message that it sends out. And I am concerned about the competition, the message that sends out in the competition that we may or may not have as we are trying to encourage business with other countries. I don't know what people feel about the PPP out there that's being considered, but if we were to receive a deal, and this was on the table at once, $600 million from Taiwan for rural goods, agricultural goods. Did we have this law in place? I wonder how comfortable Taiwan would be in looking at this kind of legislation and the $600 million that would go away because of this type of legislation. So I'm concerned about our ability to be competitive. I'm concerned about the message it sends and just the well-being of the state.
I agree with that, Senator. I think that, and while this bill particularly wouldn't impact international students if they wanted to come to Missouri, anti-immigrant bills of any kind send a message to folks outside of Missouri and outside of the United States that Missouri is not a welcoming place for immigrants. And that definitely decreases competition and decreases interest in doing business with the state of Missouri.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions for this witness? Senator?
Yeah, quick question. Sarah, you brought up an interesting point, and this before. So the students go to, say, Missouri Baptist College in St. Louis University, and they major in all sorts of different things, nursing, pre-med, pre-law, whatever. Are the kids who decide to major in theology excluded from like Pell Grants, federal financial aid, student loans, and so on?
The difference between, so they're religious,
versus someone who, let's say,
they're
went to a
religious,
seminary.
yeah, they're religious studies degrees. which are
Yeah.
different than divinity and theological degrees.
Okay.
And don't quote me on
Wait,
it, but I
line,
can't
yes.
imagine the federal government funds divinity and theological degrees. But again, I don't look at all, I don't know what all the federal grant regulations
You know, if
are.
you read, say, you know, say what she's studying, let's say, I don't know, philosophy.
Yeah, that's not a religious study.
Yeah, it's not a
Or
religious
that's not
study,
a-
but then you said, no, I really like theology better, and you started taking a few more theology courses, would you be, you know, become eligible for financial aid at some point?
I don't know if you become eligible. I think if you're at a public school and you take a theology class, I mean, that's
Yeah.
not necessarily getting
Or whether
a
it's
degree
a
to
major.
practice religion. You know?
Yeah, I know, yeah.
I don't know about the major.
Versus going to a seminary to become a
Right.
minister or a priest.
Right. But yeah, I can't imagine that the federal government funds divinity and theological degrees.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
We are running short of time. We're supposed to go back in at 3. We have 2 more bills here, so if you can make the testimony as brief as possible. Anyone else can witness against House Bill 187?
Hi, my name is Meredith Raja. I'm the director at St. Francis Community Services Southside Center. We're an outreach site and we're under the Cafeterias of St. Louis Federation. We serve the immigrant population in St. Louis, specializing in Latino and Vietnamese immigrant communities. I'm also a bilingual marriage and family therapist, and I wanted to tell you the stories of some of the lives that this bill could affect. So I've worked with Brandon for a number of years. He has been in the country since he was in 2nd grade. He came from Mexico. His family brought him because they were suffering from dire poverty. His sister was dying of malnutrition at the age of 4 when they crossed the border. And he's the first person in their family to graduate from high school. And I've been working with him. It's been really exciting to see him apply for colleges, and been really disappointing to see a lot of colleges have given him the runaround about not knowing about his DACA status, exit admission, and his financial aid. So he decided this past fall, he would go to St. Louis community colleges because he knew he had the A+ scholarship. And then after 2 weeks of being enrolled and going to classes, you can imagine his disappointment, his frustration when he was told actually he did not qualify. And so he's been forced to drop out, and now he's trying to raise the money to pay for it himself. But he had no idea how he's going to be able to afford international tuition at a 4-year university when he's helping his mother, a single mother of 4 children, support their household. And he's always talked about becoming a doctor, becoming a lawyer, maybe even becoming a therapist. And I think about all the potential he has, but if he has no access to higher education, then he'll probably be stuck in the landscaping job that he's doing right now. I also think about Jose, who I've seen since he was in 7th grade. He was ready to be expelled from his 2nd school, and he was flunking most of his classes. And when I talk to him about, this is what I do, I connect like their future goals and what they're doing in the moment to try to help them figure out like how to change their behavior. So when I talked to him about it, he said, what's it matter if I don't need to graduate from high school? I'm just gonna be a landscaper like my dad. And so in 7th grade, he could already figure out how his immigration status was gonna affect his future. Well, when he realized he could become eligible for DACA, guess what? His kid ended up on the honor roll in 8th grade, and now he's been accepted. He's attending a prestigious high school, private high school in St. Louis, and he wants to become an engineer. And yet again, I'm not sure how to tell him that he's going to have no access to financial aid, and I don't know how his family is going to afford international tuition at a 4-year university. I have lots of stories like this with kids who come to me. Their parents are bringing them because they're dropping out of school, they're smoking marijuana, and it's my job to convince them that college is probably a better option than selling drugs. But when they look at their parents and they say, you know what, I'm probably just going to end up doing a menial job for no wages, or I can sell drugs on the street. When I tell them, hey, you can try to get into college, they look and see how hard that is, especially now with laws like this. And it makes it such a huge roadblock that I don't know what we expect from these kids. So I'm asking you to vote against this, to help kids have access to higher education, and to reach their full potential. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Witness? Senator Stroud?
I'll try to be as brief as possible to inquire. I know exactly what you're talking about. My mom works with immigrants and refugees, and the stories that she has told, there are young people who have become prostitutes. They have become prostitutes because they can't find a job. Aren't we going to accept that reality? And I think it's just a gross mistake for us not to realize that they're very complicated situations. Do we want to offer some of these young people the opportunity to succeed educationally, or are we saying it's okay to become a prostitute?
Any other questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Anyone else in opposition?
Hi,
My name is Vanessa Crawford-Aragon. I'm the Executive Director at the Missouri Immigrant and Refugee Advocates. We're a statewide organization of more than 40 organizational members that organizes and advocates for the rights of foreign-born people in Missouri. I feel like this committee has talked a lot about this issue, so I don't want to belabor the point. The one thing that I would like to point out is that there are a number of these bills that have been moving through the legislature lately. It really seems like a conservative agenda. And I think that it is worth noting that Missouri is completely alone currently in moving this agenda. Something like 25 or 26 other states currently have affirmative laws on the books that grant tuition based on residency, not on immigration status. And in fact, Illinois and Kansas both have the same. The state of Tennessee is moving a tuition equity bill. It just passed its last committee today, and it's moving on to the House for its last vote where it is expected to pass. And then Tennessee will be beyond Missouri on this. We are the only state that is currently considering policies like this, and I really think that that's important to consider moving forward.
Any questions for this witness? Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else wishing to testify in opposition? Anyone for informational purposes only?
Leroy Wade with the Department of Higher Education. Again, the main concern we have with the bill, and again, we're testifying for information purposes, our board has taken a position on this, relates to the provision in section 173 pertaining to the eligibility of students to participate in access and bright light. The change that's being suggested is to remove the limitation on degrees in theology and divinity. Our concern is that that may create problems with provisions in the Missouri Constitution that prohibit public funding going into the promotion of a particular religion or religious sect. That's really our only concern about that. And hopefully, we can take a look at that and see if that's a problem. But I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for this witness? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak for informational purposes only? Seeing none, President, any closing remarks?
I just want to point out one other thing real quick. I mean, the current practice of the colleges and universities in the state is to charge the students the rate of tuition that's identified in this bill. So nobody's tuition will go up. We had a fiscal note on this last year, and that was the response that I received. The other thing is, the students who we're talking about are not currently eligible for A+. If we don't pass the bill, they'll become eligible via a rule change by the Department of Higher Education. If we do pass the bill, things will remain the way they are. That's basically the constitutional issue. I want to be clear, I was not talking about the United States Constitution. I disagree that the United States Constitution says that the government can't establish or adopt for a particular religion as the religion of the United States. It doesn't say that, this does not say that we can morally allow Christians to do this. It's anybody who has a particular religion who wants to use the scholarship for that purpose has that ability, whatever the religion is. So I disagree with the U.S. Constitution argument, but the state Constitution argument, I think is something that I'd be willing to look for society. So, thank you.
That will close the hearing on House Bill 187. Representative Swan on House Bill 380. Introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, happy birthday, Mr. Chair, and greetings to the rest of the members of the birthday party and members of the committee. Kathy Swan, KPR, representing District 147 in the essence of time. I will make this very brief. This is House Bill 380, which is a career technology certificate, which is very similar to the chair, Senator Roma, and Senate Bill 172. Therefore, I will point out three primary differences between that bill and this bill. This particular bill, House Bill 380, passed by a vote of 152 to 2 on the House floor. The bill provides for non-tracking means. The career technology professionals around the state are concerned about not tracking students in particular vocational career college paths. We did include that in this House bill. It also does not indicate a minimum number of offerings that the State Board of Education will work with local districts on. The Senate bill indicated 6. House Bill 380 does not specify a specific number. And finally, the House bill includes a provision that the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education will develop a recognition program for districts recognizing their programs of offering the CTE certificate. With that, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Representative. We worked together on this with various folks that are involved in good collaboration. And appreciate you taking that and putting in the field. Thanks. Any questions for the representative? Seeing that you have a witness, you want to call?
I believe there are some who are here.
Okay. Anyone in favor of House Bill 380?
Hi, Elizabeth Lauber, with the JG Foundation. We work with economically disadvantaged students to help them after school or the equivalent. We already testified in favor of the bill of Senator Rowan's opinion legislation before this committee, so I just, in the interest of time, will go on record in favor of the bill. I thank the chairwoman here and the senator for their work on this.
Any questions for this witness? Again, thank you for your time. Anyone else wishing to testify in favor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Brian Long, representing the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We testified for this bill on both sides of the building. A lot of our employers are looking for certification, especially for those coming straight out of high school. We feel like that this bill is a big step in that direction, and that's why we support it.
Thank you. Question for this witness? Amen. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hello, Sarah Taub, registered lobbyist, appearing on behalf of Missouri Career and Technical Education Association. I'd like to go on record in support.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Mike Wood with Missouri State Teachers Association here in Sportsville.
Thank you. Questions? None. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Mike Wiggins, school administrators, go on record in favor.
Any questions? None. Thank you. We do have a time limit, so. I was going to text this.
I'm done.
All right.
Good afternoon, Ilana Gifford with the American Federation of Teachers. We'd like to go on record also. Thank you.
Any questions? None. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Bill Schumeyer with Microsoft in support of the bill.
Thank you. Any questions? None. Thank you very much. Anyone wishing to speak against House Bill 380? Anyone for informational purposes only? Seeing none, any closing remarks for the
Thank you for the opportunity to present the bill.
Thank you for your presentation. That will conclude the hearing on House Bill 380. Next up is House Bill 272, Representative Hoskins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Representative Eddie Hoskins, representing 54th District here, present House Bill 272. House Bill 272 adds forgivable loans to the Bright Flight program. I know that you've got a similar bill in this committee, so I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for the sponsor of this bill? Senator Pearce.
Have you had a lot of comments on the research I pursued today?
I have had some comments. They've all been good.
Well, I would disagree.
Great. Okay. Do we have any witnesses in favor of House Bill 272?
Good afternoon, Paul Wagner, with the Council on Public Higher Education. Just wanted to go on record in support of this bill. I also wanted to reiterate the point that I made when we heard Senator Pearce's bill. We'd be a lot more comfortable with this if there was that language that required the core scholarship to be funded before the loan component could be awarded. You know, right now in the scholarship, the top 3% get the Bright Flight, and then there's an additional award for the 4th and 5th, and there's language that says we don't pay the 4th and 5th percentile unless we fully fund the first 3%. We'd like to kind of add this loan component onto that to protect that core scholarship that's been in place, been successful for so many years. I heard that language with both sponsors, so just wanted to mention that we are in support of the bill.
Any questions for this witness? Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to testify today?
Courtney Nick with the University of Missouri, just wanted to be on record in support of the bill.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to testify in favor? Anyone wishing to testify in opposition? Anyone wishing to testify for informational purposes only?
Leroy Wade with the Department of Higher Education. Again, although we're testifying for information purposes, we're generally supportive of any move to strengthen our financial aid programs. I did want to mention, and working with the sponsor, we did identify an issue that needs a change for students that are that might take a leave of absence, if you will, to study abroad or to do an internship. We need to be sure that those kinds of activities don't end up costing those students their eligibility. And so we're working on with the sponsor on some language to try and make sure that doesn't happen. But I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chair. So you would work with the sponsor on that and come up with a substitute next week then?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for this witness? Anyone else for information purposes only? Seeing none, we're good. Any closing comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you. That will close the hearing on House Committee Substitute for House Bill 272. Chair, will entertain a motion to go into executive session. Second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, nay? Ayes have it. As you have, we go into executive session. Chair, will entertain a motion to take up House Bill 478. One second. Second.
What is it?
This is the retirement bill, multiplier 2.55. Anyone need additional explanation on the bill? Reminder of what it was about.
Yeah, no, I discussion. Yeah, I mean, again, I applaud the goals of the bill to certainly anything we can do to make the teachers' retirement fund more solid is a good thing. I just think there seemed to be some idea during the hearing on this that this comes without a cost, and I think the cost, which of course the fiscal note says $3.8 million, is borne by the school districts. 25 plus school districts, they have early retirement incentives. The school administrators and the school board members I've talked about this have said the reason they do these early retirement incentives is one, to save money, and two, to let, to give burnout teachers an opportunity to leave early. And it seems to me what we're doing here works across the offices. So I can't be supportive of this bill, though I commend anything to make the retirement system.
But this bill does incentivize to keep the good teachers, which is something, a commodity that is.
Sure, right. And that's right, there are these 25 and out plans and all that, that school, it's kind of, in other words, Mr. Chairman, there are programs to incentivize teachers to leave early and other programs to incentivize them to stay longer. And both are financial incentives, so it's not like offering $1 here keeps a good teacher and offering $1 there pushes out a bad teacher. I'm just saying that public policy, the district level and state level, seems to be working across purposes. And effectively, this bill is a cut to the foundation formula that we keep talking about, because it does decrease. It will incentivize some teachers to stay longer at a higher pay scale when the district perhaps could be wanting to save money by hiring a newer teacher who would cost them less.
Thank you, Chairman. I guess just to kind of further what Senator said, and I initially just saw the state side of this, which looks pretty good, because it's like, okay, well, this increases retirement and it reduces the burden of the state, and if that was the whole picture, I think that would be fine. There's always some part of the economy of concern about when you figure out, when you try to think through how we can put more money in, but still get more money out. I mean, but not going to cost less. But I think the answer is that we're, in some degrees, we're kind of moving money from the district into the retirement system. So I'm not sure that this doesn't, just from the numbers that I've gotten most recently, it doesn't move money out of the classroom into the retirement system. And so I have a problem.
I know we talked about this bill in the past, when the sunsetting, the program had been in effect in the past. And the argument was that it's not actuarially sound, but as it's proven, it is actuarially sound for the retirement program. And so, I think we're taking the toolbox away from post-secondary and post-secondary 2 years use this retirement as well. We're retaining some qualified folks. Senator Pearce.
I'll be in favor of the bill. To me, I think, we have some forcing teachers out that want to stay, and I think it's a disincentive. I think in many cases, quality education is not for some. I'll just be in support.
Any other discussions? Senator Chappelle-Nadal.
Thank you. And I just want to say that I'm going to be in support of it too, and I just wanted to respond. And you're right, there are financial decisions that we make to move teachers along as they need to, and then also hold on to quality teachers. And that's one of the problems, because when you are in a struggling school district, one of the incentives that we have is if you are nationally certified, we want to compensate you for that. Because we want your quality training to be in those classrooms. But at the same time, there are teachers that need to move on. So I just wanted to follow up on that, but we have done that because we have hold on to quality teachers, especially the new ones who are starting. We want to show them that there's an environment that is going to be supportive to them in their training ultimately. Many teachers don't want to get the extra training. They don't want to pursue more classes, and so we want to encourage them. But for those who don't, they should move along. And there should be a financial incentive to help you move along.
Yeah, I think these things would be a tool in the toolbox if the district had the option of offering this or not offering this to a given teacher, depending on whether they were doing a great job or maybe needed to retire. But, this is just, completely the teacher's decision whether to stay 1 extra year. So I don't think we have any way of knowing whether the teacher who stays the 1 extra year is an excellent teacher or a not so excellent teacher. So, but in any case, I appreciate the discussion though.
We have a discussion. Motion to do pass.
So moved.
Second. Madam Secretary, Mr. Secretary, call the roll.
Senator Pearce.
Aye.
Romine.
Aye.
Brown. Aye. Emery. Liva.
Aye.
Ponder. No. Chappelle-Nadal.
Aye.
Holdsman. Aye.
By your vote 6-2, you have voted to pass House Bill 478. Entertain motion to take up House Bill 578. Second. We have a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, nay. We have that. We have House Bill 470 or 578 for discussion. We do have a Senate committee substitute. Michael, can you just give us a little update on it?
Sure. The Senate committee substitute makes one change. It requires that the basic civics test questions must be similar to the United States Customs and Immigration Service test questions, but not be the identical questions. It's the only change.
And those are copyrighted specific questions.
Yes, it's the concern.
Any discussion? We have that substitute.
I'm sorry, I need clarification on something. I apologize, I didn't really listen to what you were saying, I was looking for the substitute.
Sure.
But I know there was a conversation that we did not use that specific text.
Yes, so the substitute would say that the questions would be similar. The underlying bill required that they be taken from that test. So this would say use similar questions, not use the identical ones to alleviate the copyright concern.
Sure. Senator, just a question. Is there an explanation of why the change to December? Did somebody identify a problem with that?
With the copyright protection.
Oh, I'm sorry, I guess I was mentioning, I was paying attention. Thanks, it's copyright. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of adopting motion to adopt Senate committee substitute? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? I do have to have adopted the Senate committee substitute. Do I have a motion to do pass House Bill 578? Second. Motion second. Any other discussion? Senator Pearce.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna vote against this. Just the fact that I think we have a lot of requirements already. Anytime we're taking away from classroom time, that's less time to be spent on certain things. We have a constitution test in our state. I am somewhat worried about copyright material, even though we did put in substitute. And so for those reasons, plus I visited teachers yesterday, they were here for teachers work day for the district, and they basically said their tests are much more rigorous in their school, and they felt that this is almost somewhat of a step down when it comes to some of the things they teach in the classroom.
Senator.
Yeah, I think we get concerns from, kind of perhaps the opposite direction, which is, this does repeal a requirement that students pass a test studying, the U.S. and Missouri Constitution, American history, and American institutions. Now, our Constitution, of course, Missouri Constitution is pretty big and bulky, and I'm not sure going into the details about bonding is something the kids need, but the U.S. Constitution, American history, I think is something that is very important. So I'm a little ambivalent about this bill. I very much in favor of the goals of it, and I think I'm hearing too, like you did, Senator, that maybe this test that this bill would mandate is less rigorous than what's going on now.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, motion to do pass. Oh, we do have a motion to do pass.
Senator Pearce.
No.
Romine.
Yes.
Brown. No. Emery.
Aye.
Liva.
No.
Ponder.
No.
Chappelle-Nadal.
Pass. Pass.
Coleman.
Yes.
Chappelle-Nadal.
Yes.
By a vote of 3 to 5, and failed to pass House Bill 578. Chair, entertain a motion to take up House Bill 1127.
Someone.
Second? We have a second. We have a second. All those in favor say aye. This is the St. Joe Board issue. We have a motion to second. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. We have House Bill 1127 before us. And we do have a Senate committee substitute on that. I can give you information about this.
Sure. The Senate committee substitute would make this bill be identical to the House committee substitute on Senate Bill 473 that this committee voted out a couple months ago. The language would include the recall provision for the St. Joseph School District School Board members, add a provision saying that any vacancies on that school board would be filled by the Buchanan County Commission. It updates the description of the Springfield School District, and then also standardizes the description of the St. Joseph School District in terms of Buchanan County, and then eliminates the requirement that a candidate for St. Joseph School Board have a signed petition with 100 signatures. Instead, that person would just have to go and declare candidacy for the school board.
Yeah. So this substitute aligns the language with the Senate bill that we did pass out. So, any other discussion?
The adoption of that substitute.
We have a motion to adopt substitute. We have a second.
Second.
We need somebody else.
It has a superintendent prohibition on it, doesn't it?
No.
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor of adopting Senate committee substitute, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. I appear to have the ayes. We have adopted the Senate committee substitute. Do I have a motion to vote to pass?
Someone.
Do we have a second? Any additional discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Pearce.
Aye.
Romine.
Aye.
Brown. Emery. No. Liva. Ponder.
Aye.
Chappelle-Nadal.
Aye.
Coleman.
By 7-1, we have voted to pass House Bill 1127 as amended by Senate committee substitute. We have a motion to go out of executive session.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. I do have it. We are adjourned.